Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Access Blockbusters Pod. Welcome back to episode number 91. It's a very interesting week because not a lot of things happened, but by happened, I mean there aren't a plethora of news stories to talk about. But interestingly enough, the news stories that we do have to talk about here all coalesce around the same few topics. A lot of Daredevil Born Again, a lot of Avengers Doomsday, and a lot of Peacemaker just sort of happened to turn out that way. Some interesting things happen. You'll see in the podcast, I've talked about this before about how I record my podcasts, but I record the segments individually, and so there's going to be some segments here where we talk about Daredevil Born Again, Charlie Cox's comments, and then Vincent D'Onofrio kind of clarifying those comments. So you'll see as the episode goes on. But guys, thank you so much for joining us yet again on another episode of the Access Blockbusters Pod, episode 91. If you haven't subscribed to the Access Blockbusters YouTube channel, make sure to do so. Give this video a like. We are on the road to 2,000 subscribers by the end of the year, by December 31st, 2025. So it'd be just amazing if we could get there, guys. Thank you so much for your support. If you're interested in hearing the audio-only version of this podcast first, it comes out on the audio-only platforms before anywhere else in full, and that is US times in the mornings on Saturdays. So check it out on Overcast, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts if you are so inclined. That'll do it for the intro, guys. Let's get into the topics. Alrighty, guys. I think it's been a long time coming, and I wanted to make this segment sort of as an update and just a pulse check on where we are with the MCU. And so in today's segment, I'm going to be ranking, for me personally, every single officially announced MCU project that is going to be upcoming and my anticipation for it as we wait for Wonder Man coming out later on in the year, and of course Spider-Man Brand New Day next year. We don't have that many MCU projects coming out over the next few years, and so I thought let's just take a look at the officially announced MCU projects as of the recording of this segment. Now, this segment, I don't frankly know what episode of the Access Blockbusters Pod it's coming out in. Probably sometime in August or September. That could have aged very poorly if I waited and saved this for October, November, or December. But I'm probably going to be releasing it pretty soon. And so, I mean, projects might be announced. Like, for example, just spoiler alerts, Shang-Chi 2. As much as I would love for this film to be officially announced, it's not going to be on this list because, well, yes, it has sort of been confirmed that it's in development. Nothing has happened with it for a long time. Destin Daniel Cretton may not get to this until 2028 or 2029, so no, Shang-Chi 2 is not on this list, unfortunately. But in the intervening time between recording and the upload, Shang-Chi 2 might be announced for all we know. So, again, apologies, bear with me if you don't hear about something that has been officially announced in the meantime. That is my criteria, guys. We're not going to be talking about Shang-Chi 2. We're not going to be talking about Deadpool 4 because those, basically the criteria for this is projects that have been officially announced to be in development and production at various stages. So those are the projects that we're going to be definitely adding to the list. And then other projects that Kevin Feige himself or other actual MCU producers themselves have been talking about as in some kind of active development. So unfortunately, no Shang-Chi 2, no Armor Wars. It just seems like that movie is not happening right now. No Midnight Suns, that's a rumored movie. No Young Avengers or Champions, that's rumored. Really, I have 9 projects here. You can argue with me in the comments, totally open to that I missed something that you think should be on this list, but these are the 9 projects that I think are in some kind of active development. There's one in particular that I think you might go, is it really though? We'll see. We'll talk about that. So let's go from number 9 to number 1. My most anticipated projects for the MCU coming up in the future. Number 9 is that aforementioned series Wonder Man. And truthfully, I think I would be more excited about this if not for the fact that I know next to nothing about Wonder Man as a character. I like Ben Kingsley and I like Yahya Abdul-Mateen. I think they're great actors, but I don't know how this would fit into the MCU. I don't know if it's going to turn into a kind of She-Hulk spoof. It doesn't seem like it, but I frankly don't know what to make of this series. Also, it's going to be, I think, 8 or 9 episodes, and they're going to be about 20 to 22 minutes long, which again, I have no problem with sitcom format, right? The 22-minute episodes. I love sitcoms. Friends is my favorite show of all time, but only 8 episodes of that? That just seems a little lackluster for me, so I don't know. I'm interested, but I'm just not sure what to expect. So number 9 is Wonder Man. Number 8 is that also aforementioned, perhaps controversial pick on this list is Blade, because you might be going, why is Blade on this list, but Armor Wars isn't, or Midnight Suns isn't, or Young Avengers isn't? Blade, because we recently got an update from Kevin Feige who said, we're doing it. We're still doing it. And there have been a number of confirmations from producers and Kevin Feige when asked about, if this movie is going to happen. And he's like, yep, it's happening. So Blade is on this list. It's very low because, let's be honest, if you asked me in 2021 or 2022 after the pandemic, how excited are you for Blade? It would have been much higher on this list. And it would have been even higher had I watched Luke Cage earlier because he's great. Mahershala Ali is great as Cottonmouth. But is it going to happen? I don't know. What version of this is going to come out? I don't know. Not fear, but my thought with this is that it's going to happen at some point. Mahershala Ali is just going to make one Blade standalone film, and it's going to be fine. And then we're all just going to move past it and be like, really? All that for one fine Blade movie? So I feel like that's going to happen and it's going to be disappointing, but what can you do about that? So number 7 is, or number 8 rather, is Blade. Number 7 is Vision or Vision Quest. Everyone keeps calling it Vision Quest. Even the official Wikipedia page, which I was looking into just to confirm I had all the projects I wanted on this list, calls it Vision Quest. Has anyone actually called it Vision Quest? If you guys know, let me know in the comments and link some articles where I'm talking about the actual actors like Paul Bettany, or James Spader, or the showrunner Terry something, the guy who did Star Trek, one of the Star Trek shows. Let me know in the comments if somebody's actually called it Vision Quest, and everyone's been calling it that, and I have been colloquially referring to it as Vision Quest, but nobody's actually said that. Anyways, I'm interested in this show. I really like Paul Bettany. Again, you guys know, I have this just infatuation with WandaVision. It is one of my favorite MCU shows ever, one of my favorite MCU projects ever. I love WandaVision, I love Vision. I'm not sure what to make of all this. The AIs coming to life, the Fridays and Jarvis's, I think Jarvis is going to be in this, I don't know. Edith's and whatnot coming to life, and then Ultron is back, and then is it going to tie into Agatha and WandaVision at all? I don't know what to make of it. I'm sure if I see a trailer, I'm going to be like, wow, this is really interesting. I don't know. I have no idea what this is. So for now, Vision Quest is going to be pretty low on this list because also the 6 projects above it are fascinating, ranging from fascinating to super excited for. So Vision Quest, just by proxy, is going to be here at number 7. Number 6 might surprise you. Avengers Secret Wars. I fear that this movie is going to be a mess. An absolute mess. Now, for us comic book and Marvel fans, it might be a glorious mess of cameos and X-Men and old Fantastic Four actors. And again, I've said this before, I think everybody and their mother will be in Avengers Secret Wars. Chris Evans will be back as Captain America. I'm sure if he's not back in Doomsday already. I'm sure Scarlett Johansson might even cameo. Zoe Saldana might even cameo. All the Guardians, like everybody's going to be in this movie because it is, I think, Kevin Feige's big last love letter to the previous regimes and previous characters. I don't know if that's going to lead to a good movie. It might lead to just a crazy amount of highlight and clips and YouTube shorts, that people like, oh, look, it's Toby interacting with Hugh Jackman, who's interacting with Jessica Alba as Sue Storm, who's interacting with, what's his name? Who played a Hulk in Eric Bana. There we go. Eric Bana. It's like it could be just that, but I don't know if that's going to lead to a good movie. So we'll have to see. But I have some trepidations about Avengers: Secret Wars, despite the fact that my inner comic book movie nerd is pretty excited about it. To be honest, number 5 is also a movie. Again, you might argue with this that why is this on the list and not other movies? But Black Panther 3, because Black Panther 3 has been referred to by Kevin Feige and a bunch of other people at Marvel, and it seems like it is pretty much in active development at this point. I think Ryan Coogler might be doing another movie before that, but then I think it will be Black Panther 3. And I think Black Panther 3, I just don't know what direction they're going to go in. Is there going to be a T'Challa quote-unquote recast or soft rebooting of the universe? And what is really, actually, this movie and another one that we'll talk about later on in the list are both kind of in this shroud of what does the MCU look like post Secret Wars, because Black Panther 3 is definitely not coming out before Secret Wars. So what does the MCU, what does Wakanda look like? Is it going to be Shuri as the Black Panther? Is it going to be T'Challa the second? Is it going to be T'Challa multiverse variant as Black Panther? I don't know. All of the above? Maybe. Could be multiple Black Panthers. I don't know. So I'm intrigued, and really why this is pretty high on the list, relatively speaking at least, is because in Ryan Coogler I trust. Ryan Coogler is a phenomenal filmmaker. Again, I watched Sinners earlier, a couple months ago, I think, or a month ago, and I acknowledge that is not a movie made for me. I mean, the horror aspects and the gore and the vampire, it's not made for me. Not my kind of movie. But it is so competently made, and it again, I just acknowledge that the artistry behind that movie is phenomenal. So I trust Ryan Coogler, and I think he's going to do great. Coming in at number 4, though, is the other post-Secret Wars movie, and that is X-Men. We don't know anything about this. We don't even know who the mutants are. We know Jake Schreier is doing X-Men. He directed Thunderbolts. I really like Thunderbolts. I think he's going to do great with an ensemble of mutants, and I'm excited. I love the mutant characters. I just don't know what is it going to be, but I am so interested to see how Kevin Feige tackles the mutants. Nobody got Fantastic Four right until Kevin Feige did. And he really cares about those characters, and he really cares about the X-Men. So I'm very curious to see what he's going to do there. Coming in at number 3, a show that has quietly wrapped filming and is heading into post-production and might release in a few months, honestly, in maybe early 2026, Daredevil Born Again Season 2. The reason I'm so excited about this, we are doing our Defenders rewatch, and I've been really enjoying it. Even though I haven't loved every single season, to be quite honest with you, I've been really enjoying it because I've been learning more about these characters who I think a lot of them are going to appear in this show. I wouldn't be surprised to even Danny Rand or Colleen Wing show up in Daredevil Born Again Season 2. I think Daredevil Born Again Season 2 might be a pseudo-Defender show, but that's not really the point. Really, the point of my excitement is that, while I thought Daredevil Born Again Season 1 had potential, and you can tell, I really think out of all the projects, even compared to something like a Captain America Brave New World, you can tell Daredevil Born Again was stitched together. It is so uneven, and the story is so disjointed, and again, we can toss around the word faults, but, you can just tell. But the groundwork has been laid for an amazing second season, and really the parts that they got right were amazing. The action was just as brutal and just as well choreographed as the first 3 seasons of Daredevil. The conflict, the base of the conflict between Matt Murdock and Wilson Fisk is still there. So I think that we're really building towards a grander and more a season that's more in line with the first 3 seasons of Daredevil, with Daredevil Born Again Season 2. And that to me gets me very, very, very excited. So Daredevil Born Again Season 2 coming in at number 3. Coming in at number 2, might surprise you, is Spider-Man Brand New Day. Instead of the one at number 1, which of course you know. And we'll talk about why that's number 1 in just a second. Spider-Man Brand New Day would be number 1 because, the other 3 Spider-Man films, Spider-Man Homecoming, Spider-Man Far From Home, and Spider-Man No Way Home, are 3 of my favorite movies in the MCU of all time. It is amazing to me how those 3 films are so consistent in quality, in my opinion. Even Far From Home, which some people think is fine or not that good, I love Far From Home. I adore that movie. So, to me, right, who wouldn't be excited for Spider-Man 4? Destin Daniel Cretton, the director of Shang-Chi, amazing get. Punisher is there. And then it starts to get a little weird because all of a sudden I'm like, wait, what is going on with this movie? Why is Hulk in this movie? Who's the villain? Scorpion's going to be there, but what is this movie? And to me, that's really why it's preventing me from putting it at number 1, because Kevin Feige said street level movie. Great. The Hulk? Scorpion? Tarantula maybe? Boomerang? What is this movie? So I'm more curious than anything else about this film, and I really don't know what to make of it, but I'm excited. It's Tom Holland. He's back as Spider-Man. I'm very, very excited. But coming in at number 1, which might surprise you, just given the state of the MCU, is Avengers Doomsday. I don't know if Avengers Doomsday is going to work. Frankly, that might be why it's number 1 on this list, because there is such a curiosity factor with this movie. I feel very good that Spider-Man Brand New Day is gonna be a hit, and I'm gonna like it. I feel very good that Daredevil Born Again Season 2 is gonna be a hit, and I'm gonna like it. Avengers Doomsday? I have no idea. But the ingredients are there. Robert Downey Jr. is back, and he's Doctor Doom. That in itself, okay. You have my attention. Coming off the fact also that Fantastic Four First Steps is amazing, in my opinion, and sets up Avengers Doomsday really well. Not going to spoil anything, but it sets it up really well. Thunderbolts, same thing. Really liked it. All those characters are back, and it sets up Doomsday very, very well. Adding on top of the fact that the Russo brothers are back, on top of the fact that the X-Men are there, everyone seems to be having a great time on set, and it just seems glowing. And all the X-Men and the original Avengers, the current day roster of the Avengers, whatever that means, and then the Fantastic Four, the Thunderbolts. It seems like something is happening there, where they're making something. They're making something special, I think, and special in what sense I don't know, but I'm just so curious to see what happens in this movie. In the Russos and the MCU has to be, that qualifier has to be there. The Russos within the MCU we trust, because everything that they've done in the MCU has turned to gold. Everything that they've done outside of the MCU has really crumbled, and we're not going to talk about that. But it seems like this movie just might be something special. I don't know. It very well could. Out of these 9 projects, it could be the worst one. It absolutely could be. Because it could just crumble under the weight of something insurmountably ambitious, but it is ambitious, and I have to give it that. And all the elements seem to be lining up in a way that it's getting me really excited. So Avengers Doomsday, surprisingly, I put Spider-Man Brand New Day at number 1 automatically when I made the list on my own, and then I was like, is it really? And I think Doomsday is number 1, so I'm excited about it. So guys, those are my most anticipated projects for the MCU moving forward, number 9 to number 1. Let me know what your list would be in the comments down below. And again, you can argue with me that I should have put Shang-Chi 2 there. You should have argued I should have put Young Avengers up there. That's totally fine. This is my list. You can let me know your list in the comments down below. Alrighty, guys. Later on in this podcast, we're actually going to be talking about another cast member or alleged cast member of Avengers Doomsday, who is not currently officially on the roster, but we think he's going to be, and he seems to be teasing that. But before we get there, it seems like a lot of Avengers Doomsday second round casting teases going on here, because we have something interesting here. One of the stars of Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, Xochitl Gomez, who played America Chavez, has seemingly teased that her character will be coming back in Avengers Doomsday. Kind of, sort of. So and we're probably gonna be doing some reading between the lines here as we look at her comments, because it's not like she explicitly, somebody asked her, "Are you in Avengers Doomsday?" and she's like, "Yep, I am absolutely in Avengers Doomsday." That's not exactly what happened here, but there's going to be a little bit of reading between the lines here. And again, I don't love doing this, because I feel kind of bad sometimes when, these people are just doing interviews and they're not prepared for them. It's not scripted, and they get ambushed by questions and they're just like, "Oh, whatever." So, I mean, for all we know, there's a very good chance that any of this, it's just her saying things. It's just any of these actors saying things. They're like, maybe I shouldn't have said it quite that way. So who knows? But she was on, I believe, I want to say it's a red carpet or somewhere she was being interviewed. She was speaking with ET Online, is actually what this article says here. And they were talking to her about Avengers Doomsday. So this is what, I'm just reading directly, I think this is from IGN here. And this is what the article says. The article says, when asked by an interviewer about being, quote, hard at work on Avengers, end quote, and having to remain tight-lipped, Gomez responds, quote, very. So that's interesting, okay? But it's not a denial, right? It's not a denial. It's not an acknowledgement either. Let's move on. Later, Gomez is specifically asked for 3 words that describe her character, specifically relating to her being, quote, in the next installment of Avengers. Gomez responds, quote, bravery, courage, and let's say, powerful. In a later question, Gomez is asked about there being, quote, so many stars attached to the film, yourself included, quote, end quote, to which she simply responds, quote, oh. I think there was one other quote she gave as well, where she kind of backed off about her being in Avengers Doomsday, but she kind of sort of didn't acknowledge it and didn't deny it. So basically, Xochitl Gomez, right, was sort of asked these, I'm going to say trap questions, to be honest with you, because that's kind of what they are. They're questions designed to get her to acknowledge that she's in Avengers Doomsday without actually asking her if she's in Avengers Doomsday. And to whoever the interviewer is, to the interviewer's credit, it kind of works, because look, again, I don't want to be in the business of just reading between the lines of every single thing and every single actor says, because sometimes they just slip up, sometimes they actually do reveal things, but sometimes they just make mistakes and they're just, they say the wrong thing. So I don't want to put words in Xochitl Gomez's mouth. I also haven't seen the interview on tape, because sometimes it makes a big difference, right? Reading the interviewer's comments on paper, reading the direct quotes versus seeing the actual person talking in real life. Often in real life, it just seems much more casual than it does when we're analyzing it here. That all being said, it sure does seem like that if the interviewer was intending to, not maliciously, obviously, but trap Xochitl Gomez into saying that she was in Avengers Doomsday, it seems like it kind of worked, right? Because I mean, if all of these questions were coded in the idea of, oh, you're in Avengers Doomsday, tell us about it. You're in Avengers Doomsday. What do you think about all these stars? You're in Avengers Doomsday. She had ample opportunity, it seems like. Again, I'm saying it seems like. We don't know specifically, but it seems like she had ample opportunity to say, well, I'm not in Avengers Doomsday, but I'm very excited to see what happens there. But yeah, I love the MCU, and I'm excited to see what happens. She had every opportunity to say that. Again, acknowledging we're all human beings, and maybe she was just in the moment and she wasn't thinking, and maybe she was just thinking about Doctor Strange 3 for all we know instead. So who knows, right? It does seem like, though, that this is a tacit, I will say soft confirmation that she has some part to play in Avengers Doomsday, so we have this, coupled with the fact that if you were ever going to put any character in the MCU, obviously aside from A-list status and actor status, because, of course you're going to put Paul Rudd in Avengers Doomsday no matter what, and Chris Hemsworth, and kind of odd that Mark Ruffalo's not in there, right? But, I would think that he's going to be in there at some point. So again, we're waiting for that second cast announcement, which seems like it's coming. But just character-wise, right? Character-wise, Doctor Doom makes sense, right? But out of all the characters that have been set up, Loki makes sense, TVA, America Chavez probably is in the top 5 of characters that you probably need to include in Avengers Doomsday just because she has the power to open the multiverse. There is a distinct possibility that she becomes a MacGuffin in the movie somehow because Doctor Doom is like, wait a second, there's this character that can open the multiverse. I need to get rid of her, right? So, would I be surprised at all to see her in Avengers Doomsday? Absolutely not, because this is a character who can quite literally open portals to the multiverse. If she's not in the movie, it kind of just means that they didn't want to use her as a character because otherwise it just makes too much sense to see her in the film. So I would think here that this is just another hint. Again, we're going to talk about in a later segment another actor who seems like he's confirming that not confirming, but teasing the idea that he might be in Avengers Doomsday. I think that all roads are leading to another cast announcement. All roads are leading to even more characters being in Avengers Doomsday. We will see what happens there. My kind of gut suspicion before we end the segment here has been that they wanted to do the cast announcement in 2 waves because they're filming Avengers Doomsday in 2 parts. So maybe they're going to film, I don't know, half the movie from, when did they start? Like June or May? May till, let's say, maybe, I think it was June. June until December, they're going to film half of the movie. Or June until November. And then November until February or March, they're going to film the other half of the movie with the rest of the cast. And maybe that's why they wanted to split it up. There has to be a reason, right? There has to be a reason they're splitting up the cast. Anyways, that's all on a side. Guys, what do you think of this interview? That seems like it's hinting that Xochitl Gomez, America Chavez, is going to be in Avengers Doomsday. Let me know in the comments down below. Alrighty, guys, I don't know about you, but day by day, I'm increasingly becoming more and more excited about Daredevil Born Again Season 2. I personally, you can check out all my reviews, all my spoiler discussions on the YouTube channel, personally was not the biggest fan, even though I liked the season conceptually, and I think a lot of the episodes and elements in the episodes were quite strong. Overall, as a season, I found it to be messy, and it was clear to me, even knowing, so I admit I knew a lot about the fact that the season had been stitched together from previous iterations, a lot of it had been reshot, but I feel like, and this is all hindsight 2020 of course, but I feel like if I didn't know that, it would have been still easy to tell that just based on the composition of the episodes that we saw and the scenes that we were shown in the final version of Season 1. That being said, Marvel being Marvel, has retooled the way that they're doing TV shows, and it seems like they're really focused on making solid seasons at this point. And they have the crew back for Daredevil Born Again Season 2. It seems like everything is going well. It seems like the shoot and the writing and the scripts, everything went according to plan. It seems like they have a vision for what the season is going to be, and they're taking it quite seriously. And I'm quite excited about this. What I was not expecting, though, for various reasons, number one being I just didn't think it was going to happen, but number two being some things we covered in the past, but we'll talk about that in just a second. But for various reasons, I did not think that this would be the last season of Daredevil Born Again. It looks like, or perhaps seems like, that is the case though, based on what Charlie Cox said. We will dive into these comments here and kind of give some, well, not counter arguments, but just some points to consider here as we think about this. So Charlie Cox was, he was on a panel, it looks like, for something called GalaxyCon, and this is what he had to say. This is just it's a, when he was asked what to expect from Daredevil Born Again Season 2, he says this, quote, "There's something we do in this final season that doesn't exist in the comics, so it's unique to our show." Pause right there. And he's talking about Daredevil's costume, by the way, in particular. So it's not like they're going to do some earth-shattering thing with Daredevil. I think it's just the costume, which is fine. The costume is the costume. I know that might be a little bit controversial. I know a lot of you guys have been super on the black costume for Season 2 with the set photos and whatnot. For me, it's the costume's the costume, but the story is what's more important to me. Anyways, there's something in there, right? There's something hidden in that statement that he says nonchalantly. He says there's something we do in the final season that doesn't exist in the comics. So here's a few baseline explanations. Let's not even use any of the context that we have thus far. Baseline explanation for this. Number one, let's take him at face value. It's the final season, and he just lets slip. This is it. This Daredevil Born Again Season 2 is it, and then they're done. That is a very plausible explanation at this point, given the fact that he said that. Number two, it was sort of a slip of the tongue, but not really. Perhaps the situation over at Marvel is that Daredevil Born Again Season 2, they made a promise, right? They were going to do 18 episodes, and they decided to make just one season with 8 episodes, and now, or 9 episodes rather, at the beginning. And now they're going to make another one with, I think, 7 or 8 episodes. and then they're just going to wait and see what happens. So Charlie Cox might be saying, well, we don't know. What he might be insinuating is we don't know if Daredevil's going to come back. And maybe he's just considering it the final season because they weren't promised a season 3. Maybe it's still a distinct possibility, but maybe Kevin Feige has not had conversations with him about a season 3. For all we know, maybe this is it for Daredevil Born Again, but he's going to show up in Spider-Man 5. We don't know. We don't know. So that's another explanation. Another one, though, is that he just slipped. There's a way in which I was thinking about this. I don't think this is what he's saying, because the word final feels a little more intentional. But, for example, if he said something like, there's something we do in the last season that doesn't exist in the comics. If he used the word last, I think people would be much, much less on board with this idea that this is the final season, because last could mean final. Last could also mean previous. I don't know if final season just is in reference to the fact that this was the season they did most recently. This one is, I admit, a bit more of a stretch here, but it's the one that I've been thinking about the most, because here's the thing, going back to all the context behind all of this. We had gotten confirmation, or at least not confirmation, but a desire from the producers at Marvel that said that they had changed their model for doing TV shows up until this point. So before, they were doing big miniseries with these big MCU characters like Vision, Wanda, Loki, Sam Wilson, Bucky Barnes. They were going to do these big television event shows, Hawkeye, right? And now they're going to shift focus not away from the big characters, but more so from the big actors. And they're going to decide to, they're going to try to make individualized series with many seasons within them. And it seemed like, based on the comments, I forget who exactly made this, whether or not this was a producer for Daredevil Born Again or Kevin Feige, or I don't think it was Kevin Feige, but somebody at Marvel, we talked about this, said they would like to make a season of Daredevil Born Again, in particular, I think, also in reference to a bunch of other shows, but I think Daredevil Born Again, they'd like to make seasons of this every year. Does it make sense for this to be the final season if they're just going to stop here? I don't know. So, again, on the one hand, a bit conflicted because, sure, we can definitely take Charlie Cox. This is Charlie Cox this is Daredevil. We could take him at face value and say, oh, I guess that's it. Or we could say, well, wait a second, though. Marvel had expressed a desire to want to make many seasons of this show, and it's Daredevil. I think that it's not like Charlie Cox is 75 years old and he's like, I'm done. This is Daredevil. He still has, I think, a few good seasons left in him, and it's not like they've gone for 12 seasons and they're like, we just don't know what to do anymore. So I find it a bit curious, honestly. I don't know what to make of it. I feel like there is something, it's just a gut feeling. There's something a little bit lost in translation. He was just giving a quick answer to something. I don't know where the word final came out. Maybe it was a Freudian slip. I don't know. And I'm sure he's kicking himself now if it was at home, being like, I should not have used that word. Just slipped out. I don't know. I would suspect, though, even given all of this, that this is not the final season. That's just me. But I would just think that this is not going to be the final season. But guys, what do you think about this? Charlie Cox is apparently alluding to the fact that Daredevil Born Again Season 2 is the, quote, final season. Do you guys believe him? Let me know in the comments down below. Alrighty guys, hold the phone. I know we just did a segment about, didn't Charlie Cox just say that Daredevil Born Again Season 2 was the final season? Yes, we did. And at the time, yes, it was, apparently, according to him. Even though, in the previous segment, we just talked about the fact that, okay, so maybe Charlie Cox wasn't saying final as in final. He was just saying it to mean final as in the last season. Turns out that was probably right. So a little awkward timing here because I record segments a little bit out of order as they're coming in. And so we talked about the Daredevil Born Again Season 2. We're going to keep that in just for the sake of continuity and for the sake of, just having things to talk about here this week. But it looks like we actually have clarification on what happens there. So when these segments come out, you're going to see probably the Charlie Cox one first, and then followed immediately after by the Vincent D'Onofrio one, because Vincent D'Onofrio, who plays Kingpin, has basically confirmed my theory, my thought about what Charlie Cox was talking about. For those of you who don't know, for those of you who are unaware, if you're jumping into this as an individual segment, or if you're jumping around segments here on the full podcast, because in the full podcast, it'll be a little bit interesting, because we'll jump from Charlie Cox to Vincent D'Onofrio, clarifying what he meant. Basically, Charlie Cox, who plays Daredevil, of course, was doing an interview at an expo, and he said, there's something we do that's cool with the suit in the final season. And everybody was like, wait a second, does that mean that Daredevil Born Again Season 2 is the last season of Daredevil? Well, hold the phone, because in that segment, even before Vincent D'Onofrio made his clarifying comments, I was like, well, maybe he just means this past season, this last season. And sure enough, fans were like, hey, wait a second, what's going on? And they tagged Vincent D'Onofrio in in some social media posts, I believe, which I think Vincent D'Onofrio is actually one of those people who does respond once in a while to social media posts. And so this is coming from a Deadline article that compiles all these quotes. And it says, when tagged by a fan asking for clarity, D'Onofrio responded on X, quote, good chance there will be a third season. He goes on to say, quote, it's just too early to tell, but it's very likely. He says, I believe Charlie meant the last season we actually shot, meaning the second season. Yet, he used the term final season, so it's a bit confusing, but Charlie and I have discussed, and we both agree there's a very good chance for a third season. So, does this completely negate everything we just talked about Charlie Cox? No. I mean, there is some weird chance that Charlie Cox actually knows something that Vincent D'Onofrio doesn't, and I know Vincent D'Onofrio just said they talked about it, but who knows, right? Maybe Charlie Cox lets slip that it is actually the final season. That being said, Occam's razor, right? The simplest explanation is often the correct one. It feels like Charlie Cox said final season. He meant final season as in this past season, or the last season that they shot. Vincent D'Onofrio comes out and says, no. Charlie Cox and I, we've talked about this. And while they haven't guaranteed a third season, while they have not promised a third season, while they have not announced it, I think that it is all but a certainty that a third season is coming because of all the things that we've heard before. Unless Daredevil Born Again Season 2 is a complete disaster and a bomb, which I just find really hard to believe at this point. But again, it's possible. Then I think that the promise that, was it Brad Winterbaum, who's one of the heads of TV at Marvel, made was that now they're going to be making TV shows like TV shows, seasons, right? Actual seasons of television instead of just doing one-off miniseries. And they wanted to make, I think they said they wanted to make seasons of Daredevil every single year, or at least seasons of television shows every single year. That doesn't make any sense if they want to just cancel Daredevil Born Again just Daredevil Born Again after 2 seasons, right? So it stands to reason that of course you're going to have a second season, or third season rather, of Daredevil Born Again season 2, whatever. You guys get what I'm saying. I think the point is that there is some confusion. I think it's always important to note that when people ask these actors things, it's almost always not scripted what they're going to say. They have training, obviously, of what they can and can't say and whatnot, but sometimes they just say the wrong thing, they misspeak, they use the wrong word, and then fans flip out about it. We're doing segments about it because, sure, could Charlie Cox have meant this is the final season of Daredevil Born Again? Absolutely, and that's why we talked about it in the previous segment, but then Vincent D'Onofrio comes out and says, nope, that's probably not what the case is. We'll see. I would expect that once Daredevil Born Again Season 2 is starting to come out and people love it, which I'm presuming they will, then we'll get some announcement about Daredevil Born Again Season 3. So guys, what do you make of all this Daredevil Born Again Season 3? Is it happening? Is it not happening saga? Well, Vincent D'Onofrio seems to indicate that it is. Let me know what you think about this in the comments down below. Alrighty guys, simple question for us to contemplate today. Will Deadpool, Ryan Reynolds' Deadpool, will he be appearing in Avengers Doomsday? So we had the original cast announcement. We talked about that a couple months ago at this point, a few months ago, where they did all the chairs, and that was controversial because people were like, why did I wait this entire day just to see people's names on chairs? I thought it was kind of fun. I'm not going to lie. Doesn't matter. We got the announcement. But what we also talked about with that original cast announcement was the fact that really less about the people that were there, because yes, it was exciting to see Patrick Stewart's name. It was very exciting to see Ian McKellen's name. It was very exciting to see James Marsden and all the Thunderbolts in there as well, of course. But one of the things we talked about really that stood out was the fact that there were a lot of names missing. Not just, multiversal cameos, right? Not just Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield, which I just don't think they would have revealed at that point. But also people like Brie Larson, people like Mark Ruffalo, Benedict Wong, Benedict Cumberbatch. A lot of people that we all had thought would be in Avengers Doomsday were not on that list. Another name that we kind of thought would be in Avengers Doomsday, was Ryan Reynolds as Deadpool. Hugh Jackman as Wolverine probably comes as a package deal with him, but still, Ryan Reynolds as Deadpool just seems like he's not doing Deadpool movies anymore, we don't think, but he's going to be probably popping up here and there in these MCU films, which I think is a very perfect way to use that character. And, his name didn't pop up. There have been a lot of rumors recently, though, in the past few days, about the fact that maybe they're going to be doing a Part 2 announcement in the coming days and weeks, perhaps just as a way to increase excitement and maintain that publicity momentum. Who knows? By the time this segment even comes out, by the time I'm recording this, but, there might already be another cast announcement. So this might all be a moot point. At any rate, we've just gotten a post from Ryan Reynolds on his Instagram page that might indicate the fact that he is, in fact, going to be in Avengers Doomsday, which is interesting. Now, I'm not always somebody who wants to read into every single social media post. I mean, we talked about when, for example, Elodie Young posted something with a devil emoji, and she was like, cut and cut, which is a very classic film slogan when you're done with a take. And people were like, could she be in Daredevil? And really, I mean, I think we use that segment more so as a springboard for just the discussion of whether or not it makes sense for her character, Elektra, to appear in Daredevil Born Again, and not really to dissect every single possibility and probability of Elektra appearing in Daredevil Born Again Season 2. So that's how I want to approach this segment, because Ryan Reynolds posted a picture on his Instagram, unprompted, it seems like, so that's something interesting, of an Avengers symbol with the Avenger, or the A of the Anarchy symbol, I believe, on top of it, which is something that he had been doing during Deadpool and Wolverine. I think that they had made hats even. I think Kevin Feige even worn one where they had the Avengers logo, and then they had that Anarchy A on top of it, which is just a little tongue-in-cheek nod to Deadpool's irreverence, right? Of Deadpool wanting to be on the Avengers, but probably not being accepted on the Avengers. And that's all well and good, right? So the question really becomes, why does he post it now? Maybe he was bored. Maybe he was like, hey, publicists, I'm bored. Can I just do this? And they were like, yeah, sure, whatever. Could it also be that he's on set in London for Avengers Doomsday? Also possible, right? So there are multiple possibilities. At the end of the day, do we think, I mean, just regardless of this post, right? Irrespective of this post, do we think that Ryan Reynolds' Deadpool is going to be in Avengers Doomsday? I have a very hard time believing that he's not going to be, even if it's just for a few minutes at the end. I really do think, right? Because look, if it were a couple people who were missing from that Doomsday announcement, for example, when we were talking about Avengers Infinity War, right? It was like, oh, where's Jeremy Renner? Where's Paul Rudd? Turns out they were in other movies and they were being set up for Avengers Endgame. So it was like, okay, well, if they're not going to be in Avengers Infinity War, then fine, they'll be in Avengers Endgame. But that's not the case here. Captain Marvel, Hulk, right? Doctor Strange, Spider-Man, a bunch of really big characters who we all thought were going to be in Avengers Doomsday. At one point, Tom Holland, I don't know if he directly confirmed it or the trades did, but they said Spider-Man was going to be in Avengers Doomsday, which makes sense. Spider-Man is your biggest character right now. He is, bar none, your biggest character in the MCU now that Iron Man and Captain America are gone. And he has to be in Avengers Doomsday. So if it weren't for that fact, I would be like, yeah, it is what it is. Maybe, Ryan Reynolds is not going to be in this film. Because basically half the cast, it seems like, is missing from this announcement. Maybe they're doing a part 1, part 2 kind of filming arrangement. Because, to be fair, from all the set photos and set leaks and things like that, it seems like only the people who were in that original cast announcement have been filming thus far. So maybe everybody else has a much smaller role to play. Maybe. But still, I mean, it would be shocking to me if Ryan Reynolds were not in this movie, even just in a little bit of a cameo, maybe towards the end of the movie as they're setting up Battleworld, which we all assume that they're doing. Maybe not, though. But maybe we see, that Ryan Reynolds, Hugh Jackman, Deadpool and Wolverine universe, which doesn't seem like it's the same one as the X-Men one that they're using, because the X-Men one that they're using, it seems like for Avengers Doomsday is a little bit more comic booky, a little bit more comic book accurate. But maybe, we cut to that universe, the Deadpool and Wolverine universe, and it's like, hey, what's going on? And then they kind of get sucked into all of this with the TVA, because Ryan Reynolds, remember, Deadpool has experience with the TVA, and Loki is going to show up, so the TVA is going to be a part of it somehow. So anyways, I don't know. All that to say, I don't know, but I would be shocked if Ryan Reynolds was not in Deadpool Wolverine, in Avengers Doomsday, and maybe this is a sign that he's on set filming his scenes right now. Who knows, guys? Let me know what you think about this in the comments. Do you guys think, based on this one image alone, that Ryan Reynolds' Deadpool is going to be in Avengers Doomsday, or do you think maybe not buying it? Let me know in the comments down below. Alrighty, guys, in just a little bit in the podcast episode, we will be doing our hopes and predictions for Peacemaker Season 2. But before we do that, before we get into that, let's talk about this new Redband trailer. Now, for those of you who don't know, my philosophy with watching trailers generally, because I am one of those people that trailers are not meant for me. Trailers are meant, they're a marketing tool. They're meant for people who are not interested or have not heard about a certain project and trying to get them interested in whatever's going on. For me, I could have gone every single day without watching a single trailer for Avengers Infinity War or Spider-Man No Way Home or The Batman or Superman, because I was going to watch those movies anyway. So why would I watch trailers? But trailers do get us excited. I really enjoy trailers for the most part. But I usually don't watch every single TV spot or every single promotional clip, because why would I want to ruin, the experience of seeing those things on the big screen for the first time? However, that being said, I do make it a point to watch the big major trailers. So a week before Peacemaker Season 2 debuts, they released another trailer, and I was like, all right, I guess we're watching it. I don't really want to, not because I'm not excited for Peacemaker Season 2, but because I feel like I've seen enough, I think, to know what it's going to be and to be excited about it. But I said, okay, it's another trailer. It's a full-length trailer. It's not a TV spot or anything. Let's take a look here. It's the Redband trailer. And immediately James Gunn and John Cena are out there sitting in a studio, and they're cussing, and they're saying, yep, this is a Redband trailer. And sure enough, this is the most Redband of Redband trailers. Now, if you've seen Peacemaker Season 1, what you see, the kinds of things you see in this trailer should not be a surprise to you. If anything, though, it feels like it's all being turned up to 11, even from Peacemaker Season 1. I don't know if they just compiled all the bloodiest and, let's just say, least child-friendly kinds of elements of Peacemaker Season 2 into a 2-minute trailer to make this Redband trailer, or if this is really what every single minute of every single episode of Peacemaker Season 2 is going to be like. I don't know. Because it seems very intentional that they're making this a Redband trailer in this way. So who knows, right? Who knows? It is very, very bloody, and it is very violent, and it is very graphic in certain ways. Not appropriate for children. And I think it's interesting that, we're transitioning because Marvel, right? Marvel made its first R-rated movie in Deadpool and Wolverine, and it looks like it's going to dabble here and there with more mature content. Daredevil Born Again was pretty violent in certain ways. But generally speaking, Marvel is, every Marvel project is for everybody. Well, DC made Creature Commandos, which was pretty violent, even in animated form. It made Superman, which was arguably about as family-friendly as you could make a superhero movie, which is pretty good, pretty cool. And then you jump to Peacemaker. And Peacemaker is about as not family-friendly as you could make it to, and still be, mainstream enough, right? And not go too crazy. So I think it's interesting. I think it's interesting that this is a tactic. And we'll see, right? We'll see how James Gunn handles it. We'll also see how Peacemaker plays into the rest of the DCU, because not everyone who watches Superman, just on the basis alone of this being a TV show about a lesser known character, quote unquote, because I know he had a season 1 and people liked it, but not everyone's going to watch Peacemaker season 2, watch Superman. And then they're not going to know what went on in Peacemaker Season 2 going into Supergirl. So when he shows up again in the movies, because he's, spoiler alert, showed up in the movies already quickly, I'm curious to see how James Gunn is going to tackle this. The other interesting thing here is that they kind of talk about a little bit more about this multiversal plot here, about the fact that Rick Flag Sr. says, like Lex Luthor. So that's interesting, alluding to the, again, minor spoiler alert, the pocket dimensions that Lex Luthor had. Like Lex Luthor, Peacemaker has a rift or an opening to an alternate dimension, and they want to get rid of it. So it looks like very early on in the DCU, this idea of alternate dimensions and pocket universes and rifts and dare I say multiverses is going to be a pretty significant part of what's going on, at least on Earth, which, again, I mean, if you listen to my previous segment where I talked, where we did some thoughts on the previous Peacemaker Season 2 trailer, this is something that I'm a little bit hesitant about, because I feel like as the multiverse has peaked quickly, like Spider-Man No Way Home, for example, it's faded just as quickly. I think people are kind of over it at this point in superhero content. I could be wrong. Maybe you guys are clamoring for more multiverse content. Let me know in the comments. But for me, I'm like, James Gunn, I think we can do different things now, right? We'll see. I mean, maybe Peacemaker is the greatest multiversal story ever told in the 21st century, next to Everything Everywhere All at Once for most people. And maybe we'll eat our words at that point. I don't know. It's definitely possible. I'm hoping so. But again, I know I want to clarify, because people are going to comment. I know it's not literally the multiverse. It's not a different universe. It's a different dimension. I get it. But it's essentially the same storytelling device. So anyways, yeah, I don't know what to make of all this, to be honest with you. I'm intrigued, I'm entertained by what I see in the trailer, but I'm also a little concerned, not gonna lie, just about how heavily they're leaning into this. Rick Flags, he says, Lex Luthor had this multiversal or pocket universe, and Peacemaker has one too, and we need to get it. We need to stop him. Seems like the brunt of the show. We'll see what happens there. But again, I'm very curious to see how they're going to handle it. So guys, that was, we got another look at Peacemaker Season 2, a more bloody, violent look at Peacemaker Season 2. And I mean, it looks like Peacemaker. Again, I've said this many times. I think the variance for people who are going into Peacemaker Season 2 is not gonna be that big from people who liked or didn't like Peacemaker Season 1. I think if you loved Peacemaker Season 1, you're gonna love Peacemaker Season 2. I think same thing if you liked it, same thing if you didn't like it. I think the variance is gonna be pretty low, but we'll have to see. First episode coming out next week, and so we will do our spoiler discussions at that point. Guys, what do you think of this new Redband trailer for Peacemaker Season 2? Let me know in the comments down below. Alrighty guys, project number 3 of the DCU. Let's talk about Peacemaker Season 2. When this podcast or this segment is coming out, you will probably be on the verge of Peacemaker Season 2, which is very exciting. And yeah, Peacemaker Season 1, it was a show that I was a big fan of. Honestly, I've said this before, I think Peacemaker Season 1 is probably the show that leans most into James Gunn's sensibilities as a filmmaker. For me, the Guardians films and Superman and even the Suicide Squad, to an extent, have a little bit of a ceiling for me in terms of how much I enjoy them. Because I think James Gunn has a sensibility as a filmmaker. And again, just for me, sometimes it works really well, and then in other moments it doesn't work quite as well. But I think Peacemaker is the vessel in which it works. It can work the best, at least for me personally. So I am pretty excited for Peacemaker Season 2. The trailers have given me a little bit of pause, though. And we'll talk about this as we go through. I have 3 hopes and 2 predictions for Peacemaker Season 2. Just to give a little bit of a rundown, these hopes are essentially things that if they happen, if they come to pass in the way that I'm hoping for, I'm not saying Peacemaker Season 2 is a guaranteed success on my part, or at least for me, but I am saying that it has every chance to succeed if these things happen, in my opinion. And then 2 predictions, just things that I think will happen. They're not going to be, I always say this, they're not going to be easy predictions. It's not going to be like Peacemaker saves the day, or Peacemaker fights himself, because, you know, we see these things in the trailers. But rather, they're just going to be a little bit more out there, just for fun. You know, I have maybe a 50% success rate with these, so, you know, maybe I'll get one of these right. And we will go from there. So, let's dive in. 3 hopes and 2 predictions. I tried to line them up, but honestly, I don't know what to predict for Peacemaker. I tried to come up with a 3rd prediction to make them even, but I don't know. So, 3 hopes and 2 predictions. These hopes here, by the way, not that they're more negative, but I was thinking about this. For me, Peacemaker Season 2, I mean, the things that we know are going to happen. James Gunn is going to write some really funny scenes and funny dialogue. The action's going to be cool, and it's going to be very similar to Peacemaker Season 1 in terms of tone and things like that. So I didn't have hopes necessarily for those things, because I feel very good about those things. So funnily enough, because I feel so good about those things, my hopes here actually are more, I will say, more things to avoid for Peacemaker Season 2. So number 1, my first hope, please be careful with the multiverse. Okay, first of all, I get it. It's not the multiverse. I know it's not literally the multiverse. It's parallel dimensions and it's pocket universes. I get, for all intents and purposes, it is the exact same narrative framing device. Multi-universes, different variations of yourselves. Another world where it's the exact same, but things are a little different. It's the exact same narrative device. If you want to go hear my thoughts more in depth on this in my about the multiverse and about these different things with Peacemaker Season 2, go check out my thoughts on the 2nd trailer, the most recent trailer for Peacemaker Season 2. We talked about this, I believe, a couple weeks ago. But in short, I feel like in general, in superhero movies and shows, we're kind of over it. I think Marvel is doing its best to close out the multiverse saga in a big way, but I think it's been tried and it's been true, and we've gotten some successes with Spider-Man No Way Home and even Deadpool and Wolverine, but I think it's just time to close the book on this. So the fact that James Gunn is reopening this book, especially establishing a new universe, especially when fans of the Snyderverse and the DCEU are still not quite over it at this point, maybe they'll never be over it, and maybe that's fine. But James Gunn opening the door to even just the hint that the DCEU is partly canon or could be a universe explode, it's just gonna get messy. And I don't know. I mean, it's been happening for the past 5 to 10 years. The multiverse has been everything, and it's been, pun intended, everything everywhere all at once in terms of the movie and entertainment industry. And I just hope that we can maybe move past it. So I have faith in James Gunn. He knows what he's doing. So that's why I'm not saying don't do the multiverse. I'm just saying be careful with the multiverse. Speaking of that, hope number 2, be careful, please be careful with DCU and DCEU canon. This series has the potential, more than Creature Commandos, which also kind of fudged DCU and DCEU canon already, because it mostly kept intact everything that James Gunn had done with the DCEU, Suicide Squad and Peacemaker. This series, though, being a season 2 in a universe when season 1 was in a different universe, has the potential to be very messy. And I know James Gunn has tried to get out in front of this with canon and what is canon, what's not canon, and what should we take and what should we not take. I get that. I'm just a little concerned because, I mean, I was thinking, okay, if you're going to do Peacemaker Season 2, because let's be completely honest, and you can say this is a good thing, you can say this is a bad thing, whatever you think, totally fine. Totally fine. Let's just be upfront and clear, though. James Gunn said, we're starting a new universe. It's the DCU. But he also And so he also said, we're getting rid of everything else that came before. Henry Cavill, gone. Gal Gadot, gone. Ben Affleck, gone. Okay, great. Let's move on. Except he also said, but I'm going to take everything I did from the DCEU and bring that over. And everything else, it's gone. And again, say what you will. Say this is a good thing. Say this is a bad thing. I'm not really here to litigate that. I'm not here to talk about my thoughts on that. But that's what he did. That is what he did. And now he's going to have to face the consequences. Consequences is a strong word. But just to prove a point here, just to make a point, he's going to have to deal with that here. How he's going to do that? He says he's addressing it. I don't know. Let's just be careful with it. Let's not make this a big point, and let's just kind of let's see what happens. I'm a little concerned about this in addition to the multiverse, so we will see how that is handled. Hope number three. Keep the story, small, quote unquote small. I'm not saying you shouldn't go for it. You shouldn't go for big action and crazy things. I mean, season 1 had a big alien cow, right? Butterflies. Not those things. I think that James Gunn will do crazy, and he's usually really good at it. So I'm not saying keep the story small in that regard. I'm not saying this entire season should be Peacemaker having a conversation with Harcourt for 8 episodes and that's it. No, not at all. But James Gunn has alluded to this, and I think I feel hopeful about this, that this season's going to be more emotional. It's going to deal with Chris Smith's psyche a little bit more in depth. And I think that dealing with his idea that he wants to be a hero more now after the events of Peacemaker season 1. And I'm excited about that. So I hope that is the case. Keep the story intimate, keep the real emotional crux of this small and intimate. And I think that we will be in a good spot. And then 2 predictions here. Number 1, kind of out of nowhere, I think Batman will show up. I'm not going to commit to the idea that they're going to show the actor who plays Batman. I actually suspect that they're going to probably do another silhouette kind of thing like they did with Creature Commandos. Maybe, just as something to throw out there. Maybe the entire season of Peacemaker happens and all things are good and wrapped up at the end of it and the multiverse is closed. I hope. I really hope. And then the post-credit scene for the finale is a silhouette of the Batman ears and the cape and the cowl from the back as he's in the Batcave looking at a monitor, looking at the whole thing happen. Maybe that's it. I don't know. But I think in some fashion or form, Batman will show up. James Gunn has been teasing a big cameo. I don't know if that's what it's going to be, but I think that maybe this might be a good time to start sowing the seeds for the future Batman of the DCU, which I do not think is going to be Robert Pattinson. James Gunn has said over and over and over and over again, it's not Robert Pattinson. So there is that. And my only other prediction for Peacemaker Season 2, this is based on some things that James Gunn has said before, where he said that based on Peacemaker Season 2, you're going to start to get a better idea of what the grander story of the DCU is going to be for Gods and Monsters. Because yes, the DCU is going to have an overarching story. How clear that's going to be early on and how connected things are going to be, who knows? I mean, is Clayface going to show up in Justice League? I don't know. Maybe not. But James Gunn has said that you will start to get an idea of what's going on here. And I think in that vein, Peacemaker Season 2, James Gunn has said how much he loves making Peacemaker and how much he really enjoys these characters in this story. I think Peacemaker Season 2 is going to be the linchpin for what happens next. Similar to some linchpin stories in the MCU, like, I don't know, say an Iron Man 2 leading up to Avengers, or Thor the Dark World, or Guardians of the Galaxy, just films that set up Infinity Stones and do a little bit more of the heavy lifting in terms of setting up the Infinity Saga, right? There are stories that do that a little bit more. Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, I'm sure, did some heavy lifting in terms of what happens in Doomsday. I think Peacemaker Season 2 will be one of those shows and will be a big linchpin for what happens for Gods and Monsters, the first chapter in the DCU. So guys, those are my 3 hopes and 2 predictions. I know they sound a little bit more negative. Again, it's because I have all the faith and confidence in the world for James Gunn to deliver on the things that he always delivers on. Great action, I'm sure, great music choices, needle drops, and then of course, funny jokes and good humor and storytelling. So those things I'm just not as worried about for Peacemaker Season 2. I think, like I said before with my trailer reaction, I just think this is a show also with the smallest amount of variance between first and second season. I think that if you loved Peacemaker Season 1, if you liked it, you're going to love and like this second season. I just have a good feeling about that. If you hated Peacemaker Season 1, I don't think that's going to change personally. We'll see. Would love for everyone to keep an open mind. I'm excited about it, and we will see what happens there. So reviews will start to come out from me next week, hopefully, and then we will dive into the actual episodes. Guys, what do you think about my hopes and predictions for Peacemaker? What are your own hopes and predictions for Peacemaker Season 2? Let me know in the comments down below. And everybody, that will do it for episode number 91 of the Access Blockbusters pod. Thank you so much for joining us again every single week. Road to 2,000 subscribers. We are on our way. It is an exciting time here on the YouTube channel and on the podcast feed. So if you haven't subscribed to the Access Blockbusters YouTube channel, make sure to do so. Give this video a like and comment down below with your thoughts on any of the topics. And if you are interested in the audio-only platforms, make sure to check us out on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Overcast as well. That will do it for me from the Access Blockbusters pod, episode 91, and I will see you guys in the next one.